During these several decades of my life, Los Angeles has burned, the campus of Berkeley was firebombed, Portland had heads bashed, New York City had marchers clogging the streets demanding the killing of police officers. Occupy Wall Street did millions of dollars in damage to any place they formed. Antifa has destroyed property and injured people, and Hillary mobs beat Trump supporters in the months prior to the 2016 election. And one must not forget the illegal actions by the FISA court. The FBI, the CIA, and the Justice Department, as members of the Obama administration, tried to get Trump defeated or imprisoned. And they didn't care which, as he ran for the presidency of 2016. None of these leftist crimes I just listed have received any punishment that I'm aware of. The leftist news cable channels were always careful to remind us to understand the rage the rioters and arsonists were feeling as they did their evil deeds. And that was the end of the story, as far as they were concerned. The police forces, the mayors, and the governors of the location where these outrages occurred were evidently amused by them, and the perps got off scot-free. But in the last 2 months, as the governments of too many cities and states have unconstitutionally locked down nearly all commercial transactions, several conservatives have decided to reopen and run their businesses in spite of the leftist orders to the contrary. And these people who behaved peacefully and did not burn one building nor hit anyone's head, are being visited by police and are going to jail. So outright violence in which citizens are injured is forgiven. But acting in a peaceful, mature manner, not approved by the leftist officials, gets you cuffed and jailed. And at the highest level of government, a plot by the FBI to keep Donald Trump and his newly appointed National Security Advisor, General Michael Flynn, from taking office, or at least to get them removed after the swearing-in ceremony was completed, goes unpunished, and would have been entirely buried and forgotten with no notice at all if Hillary had been elected to the White House and not Donald Trump. When trying to support your family and keep your businesses going becomes a crime, it's a serious and uncomfortable thing to observe, especially in a supposedly free nation protected by a constitution. And the Democrat lie that keeping everyone locked in their homes for months on end is protecting citizens from a disease, when the virus in question, I say in question, is greatly less deadly than the annual cold and flu season illness we deal with every year. It's a communal and intentional lie that must be exposed daily and hourly as the Democrats try to intimidate us and convince us to be docile and obey their orders. The most remarkable impact of the questionable Flu Manchu has on America is the sight of pastors waiting like dogs anticipating a treat until Caesar gives them permission to start rendering unto God. You couldn't have convinced me in March that Baptist preachers would cancel Easter services. Easter is the central pivot of Christianity. Without the resurrection, Christianity is pointless. As Paul explains in 1 Corinthians 15:14, and if Christ is not risen, then our preaching is empty and your faith is also empty. The birth of Christ, Christmas, is only important because of Easter. And Christian shepherds surrender without so much as a whimper. The First Amendment clearly states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. It's plain as day. Equally plain, prohibiting the free exercise is exactly what happened. I call it a tale of two prohibitions. When alcohol prohibition began in 1920, a nationwide movement quickly started to manufacture and consume forbidden booze, in spite of legal consequences for both buyer and seller. Fast forward with me to 2020, when the China flu church prohibition began. Pastors meekly submitted, along with their parishioners, in fear of the unconstitutional legal consequences. Folks, preachers were lambs when facing the secular authorities, but lions when facing criticism for doing nothing. Believers can't possibly expect senior pastors to risk arrest or negative news story just to hold worship services. The situation is equivalent to the occasional media complaints from harried medical workers as they fight the Kung flu. Sure, it's tough, but isn't this what they signed up for? The chance to make a difference in a real health emergency? Or was their commitment only broken wrists and sprained ankles? Lest we remember Christ died on the cross. Today his worship is prohibited, and pastors in general haven't even been willing to risk getting a visit from the Flustapo, much less make a personal sacrifice. A defender of the faith evidently doesn't include risking the wrath of the bureaucracy. I've seen coverage of Christian leaders who aren't ready to rely on God for protection just yet, but might be willing to file a lawsuit. And Maine Calvary Chapel has gone to a federal court. They hope to reopen for Mother's Day, a Hallmark holiday not found in the Bible, but missed Easter entirely. 2 Kansas churches got a judge's permission to gather together. In California, Church United relied on a law firm to host a petition. Michigan churches are suing power-mad Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And Breitbart found 260 Massachusetts pastors ready to get tough. They sent a letter to the governor begging him to recognize churches as essential. Well, you can almost hear the skin being twisted as they wring their hands. I'm sorry, folks. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not unashamed. I'm going to say it because somebody has to. Over the course of a few days, Jesus was betrayed by a friend, arrested, tortured, spat on, brutally and unnecessarily beaten, whipped, mocked, crowned with thorns, and sentenced to death. He was forced to carry his own cross before they executed him upon it. And the best we can do is a lawsuit. It's simultaneously laughable and pathetic. This is what Christians get when they hire pastors based on compassion and not fire. The lawsuits may make the deacons, who are also lawyers, happy, but it undermines the status of the church. Lawsuits are defensive, differential, and submissive. Even when the church wins the suit, after months of empty pews, the victory still allows government to set the conditions for worship. Folks, Christ is either king or he's just another activist with an opinion. Worship does set an example. Not worshiping shows the world church is secondary to secular control. Continue to worship shows Christ is still in control of the believers of the world. And some pastors actually know this. In Chicago, Metro Praise International knows the stakes and has been demonstrating passive resistance to the state. The pastor doesn't plan to sue, he plans to preach. Grace Built Church in Waynesboro, Virginia is finally defying Governor Blackface Northam. And Louisiana pastor Tony Spell, he preached last week with an ankle monitor on as he defied a judge's order to stay home and stay silent. This is what should have been done all along. Worship first, then if necessary, the courts to get the pastor and the parishioners out of jail. Hold services with social distancing, sanitizer in the baptismal, an individual communion package, whatever. Urge seniors and the vulnerable to stay home. Hold plenty of services each Sunday so everyone who wants to attend can social distance their way inside. For those that can't, the staff can visit them personally and pray through the storm door during the week. The important point is to demonstrate you believe Christ is important enough to worship regardless of Caesar. Sure, some churches will flaunt the woo-flu rules. We'll call them snake handlers. But those congregations were probably dangerous before the epidemic. My friends, anything is better than what believers have now. The great pandemic panic is the biggest victory for the secular Christianity hostile left in decades. It's a victory facilitated by docile, fearful, spiritual, lacking pastors who sat passively while the powers and principalities that rule this earth convinced Christians that God and worship were non-essential. While our churches are closed, Democrats undermine the Constitution and defy common sense with everything they do. And conservatives just want to support their families and protect their investments. But only the latter are defiled by the leftist press and put in jail. It's time to wake up, America. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my message. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you wish to donate, donation links again are found in the description below. And until next time, God bless you and your family. Please be safe.